Yeah, well, just piggybacking on why is this in the budget repair bill? The sale of power plants, state-owned power plants, on a no-bid basis, especially in light that Governor Walker has taken some large contributions from the Koch brothers, who are obviously interested in that industry. Why? What's the rationale of doing that? That seems to be totally quandary, and I've never heard an explanation for that.
I'll give you my opinion, and it might be some factoring or two, but Koch brothers are a big operation. They're not just in Wisconsin. They're multinational. They're huge. You see their trucks running around all over. For them to even think about purchasing these power plants now, if they had any intentions to do that, I would be amazed. I mean, they're big potatoes. Why would they want to own little heating plants at universities and stuff like that? I can't, in my business mind, these guys could build a nuclear power plant if they wanted to. Why would they screw around with little heating plants at universities and hospitals and stuff like that? So the idea of them even wanting to buy these things is stupid to me. Yeah. Maybe they wanted to, but I can't imagine it. I don't think there was ever intention of the Koch brothers buying anything. We do have these heating plants. They do exist, and the state of Wisconsin's running them. And going back to what I said before, it's an enterprise to run these things. Does the state of Wisconsin have the expertise to run power plants and heating plants? Absolutely not. So they're not going to do a very good job of it, but the pure fact that it's a bureaucracy. And you've got bureaucrats trying to run a power plant. They don't know how. It's inefficient. They're money losers, and they don't know how to do it. Some of them need major repairs. There's maintenance issues and stuff like that. It's not within our realm of expertise. The state of Wisconsin shouldn't own the stupid things and operate them anyway. They're kind of like mini utilities. So we need to get rid of them. Now you say no bid contract. I'll tell you one thing. If I was selling my asset as a businessman, there's no way in God's creation I'm going to put it out on bids. So you got a $500 million power plant, and the bid comes in at $100 million. You going to sell for $100 million? Absolutely not. I'm going to say, give me an appraisal on that asset. That asset's worth $500 million. If I don't get $500 million, I'm not selling it. So would I put it out on a no bid contract? Absolutely. I want to make doggone sure that I get my money out of it. So it's all off the table anyway. Well, it's going to have to come back on the table. We should sell the stupid things. You know, we don't have any business running them. But when we do it, we're going to make sure that there's an appraisal done on them. And if they're worth $100 million or $500 million or whatever they're worth, we better get that or not get that, or we won't sell them. So that's the process. And to call it anything else and say, oh, no bid. Well, of course, you don't want to take bids on it. Why would you take bids on it? Because you might get half or a quarter or a tenth of what they're worth. And many times people take advantage of governments because governments aren't very smart and they're very inefficient and they're bureaucrats. And so all of a sudden, well, let's buy this government asset. You've seen government assets sold for pennies on the dollar because they're just not smart enough to do it right. You know? And I would never let them sell that asset without going through the process of getting the money out of it and doing it correctly.
Well, and I guess that's the thing. My impression was, and again, it's only the spin that I get from the media and each side of the political table.
There's an answer to part of your question.
Right. The way I understood it, it was up to the governor if he wanted to sell them or not, and whatever he wanted to get for them was fine.
He has no control. He has no control. The fiscal issues of the state are controlled by the Assembly. He doesn't have the power to do it. He would be taking my power away from me. And I'll tell you one thing. You talk about protective. There's 3 forms of government down there: judicial, legislative, and executive. And you step on my toes, and I'm going to scream. And I step on their toes, they're going to scream. We have the judicial branch would like to step on our toes with this last Supreme Court justice election. They wanted to stack the court now. They call it a referendum on Walker. That's impossible. How could you do that? The justices are supposed to interpret the laws that I make. If they in any way, shape, or form can change those laws, or make those laws, or eliminate those laws, or have a political influence, there's a problem within our separation of powers. To say that voting for Kloppenburg had anything to do with Scott Walker and the budget repair bill or anything was totally wrong, and that's dangerous. As soon as I saw those signs popped up says, fight Walker, vote Kloppenburg, I was scared because we have a real problem with our separation of powers.
Representative Rivard, when I interviewed you last fall, you brought up the issue today of sustainable wages for municipality bidding on contracts, bidding out contracts over $25,000, I believe.
Okay.
They have to hire
prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage. Okay,
yep.
Prevailing wage. You said that was one of your issues that you wanted to address because that was hurting local municipalities. They were municipalities were limiting contracts to $25,000 or under because they couldn't afford the higher wages. What have you done, or what has there been any movement on that prevailing wage issue? Or
absolutely. There's a couple of bills coming down the pike right now, and things got kind of put on hold because of what's been going on the last few months. So we had we were kind of sidetracked a little bit there. But now things are starting to come back online. There is a couple of bills being proposed. One of them is for total elimination of prevailing wage. When I met with Scott the other day, we talked about that because the word on the street was that he was, had some big payoff from the unions, and he's going to make sure it doesn't get changed. And that's going to be fired for the truth. But I said to Scott, I said, now, if it's completely eliminated or if it's rolled back, will you veto it? And he said, total elimination, he probably would. And he said, but a rollback is probably what you're going to see. Going from the $234,000 threshold down to $25,000 basically eliminated their small municipalities from getting, keeping their costs down. It eliminated your small contractors from getting any jobs and bids. It really was a very, very bad bill for rural Wisconsin, particularly in small municipalities. In my world, the minimum I want to see is a rollback to where we were. So there are some people that want to actually go back farther than that, which would make sense because it was never indexed. It stayed at 234, and even when it was created, 234 was a lot more money than it is now. So it should have had a graduation with inflation or CPI or something, so that it would get larger and larger and larger just to give that protection for your small municipalities.
I want to make sure that anybody who wants to have a one-on-one with the representative, with Roger, has that opportunity, since we've been here for a little over an hour. So if you want to just come up and tap me on the shoulder, happy to continue this. It's your office hours. You can do with it what you want, but we did make sure that we did say that people would have a chance to do one-on-one. So we want to make sure you have that.
There might be something personal.
Yeah. Representative Rivard, Superintendent of Public Instruction proposed last fall two things. He proposed that the school tax credit that property owners get be given to the school districts, and he also proposed that every free or reduced student in a school district be counted as 1.2 students versus just one student for the school revenue formula. Do you have any position on that as far as assisting schools, or do you know what the status of those proposals are? Or is there any?
Not real familiar with that, but I know that goes back to the school aid formulas, and that's a very complicated, contentious issue. And I think you're going to see a lot of work done on that in the next couple of years, because school aid formulas, particularly, that goes back to the same thing, which kind of underlying theme here is rural Wisconsin and the smaller school districts get hurt the most sometimes.
Well, that 1.2, because especially in Washburn County, over 50% of students in Washburn County are on free or reduced meals. So if they were counted as 1.2 students, the school districts could raise their revenue limit considerably.
Sure.
Instead of counting them as one student, they count them as 1.2 students. That would greatly help the school districts up here as far as their revenue limit.
It would make sense because of the fact that the 50% of students are on these different programs. Makes it more costly for the school district, so it would make sense. And we've got to look at those things.